Hi and welcome to another edition of our People First interview series, where we shine a light on great companies that not only do interesting and cool work, but most importantly look after their people. I'm Pete Sanders. I'm the co-founder and group MD of Identifi Global. We're a market leader in personalised career management and talent acquisition within the legal tech sector, where candidate experience is guaranteed. I'm really excited to be joined by Nick Watson, who's the MD of Ruby Datum, founder of Law Tech London and advisor to the Centre of Legal Innovation. Ruby Datum is a leading virtual data platform with a strong focus on user experience. The company's been around since about 2016 and their clients already boast people like Quantuma and Mission Derea. Nick, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No problems. Yeah, really excited to have you on. Nick, I've probably done you a bit of a disservice on on Ruby, and but you've got many hats. You're MD, you're Law Tech London founder, advisor. What do you do for fun?
Well, right now I'm out broadcasting from Ibiza.
Wow.
I've just come out here to relax for like 20 days. I'm a bit of a junkie when it comes to the sunshine. I just like to surf. I'm into my music. It's just love life, really.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, well, that's a good place to be if those are on your tick list. So yeah, I'm very jealous. Very jealous. It's a place that's dear to my heart as well. From a young lad being an idiot, and also from a family perspective these days, we do family holidays there as well. So yeah, I'm very jealous. So Nick, as I've sort of launched off, the idea of this podcast is really to shine a light on companies that look after their people, and everyone does it differently, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it. So, well, maybe there is a wrong way of doing it, but if you're trying to look after your people, then you're generally on the right path. But can you describe what things were like for you and Ruby Datum as the walls closed in and the country went into lockdown? How did you communicate with your people? What was going through your mind? What was life like?
Yeah, sure. So we're a virtual company anyway. People, apart from a few people in our London office, which is run by equity partner of ours, Cosmonauts.
Right.
That's the sales team. We all work remotely, the whole development team, and it's like well-oiled machine. We use Microsoft Teams to communicate. Usually use Slack, but recently migrated. And we've always been quite good at staying in touch anyway on the phone. So as the pandemic hit, not a lot changed really in terms of the way we ran day to day.
Same old, yeah. I mean, so nothing changed from you from a sort of operational perspective. Were there any concerns from your staff? Were they worried about anything? Was it a case of, how did you sort of put their minds at rest, or what did you do? Did you furlough anyone?
No, I basically, we couldn't really furlough anyone because it's an online platform, and if anything went wrong, we needed all hands on deck. So that would class as working. So I didn't want to abuse the scheme in any way. But I did speak to a few of the staff about the furlough scheme and said, look, this scheme is here. If it was interest to you, would you want to take it? And they all came back to me and said, no, we think we'd go mad if we didn't have work to do. So we continued to run as normal.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we've spoken to a few companies that have they've not taken advantage of the furlough scheme, but just asked them to, they couldn't work because, I don't know, maybe they were a receptionist or whatever, but yeah, it's interesting how different companies take advantage of that scheme, and I think it's an important scheme, and clearly some people have saved some companies, but others, if they can carry on, I mean, that must have been, great news for your guys, really, to sort of be able to carry on working as normal, and that must have given them some sort of job security.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And I'm always transparent with my staff. I had an honest conversation, said, look, it's going to be really difficult. We sell to law firms. It's the lawyer's job to mitigate risk, and in times of uncertainty, nobody really wants to spend any money. So we were aware that period was going to come. And I said, look, worst comes to the worst, like very worst case scenario, I've got enough contacts to get you another job, like development is well sought after. we can work something out, but I don't think it's going to come to that. And you know, they're all highly skilled and really good at what they do. I don't think they'd struggle to find another job.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we've been all right, but
yeah,
it's you've got to prepare for the worst.
absolutely. I mean, that's, you know, I think, you know, sometimes business leaders forget that. I think that, you know, people are pretty reasonable if you're just upfront and honest with them about things, and you know, they're not stupid. They get it.
Yeah.
So I think when you try and fill them with bluff and gusto, then that's when they start to think there's something dodgy going on, and they start to you know, do weird things. So obviously business has been slow, and for everyone really, and you know, and you. So what have you got your guys doing if, you know, if you aren't bringing on new customers?
Yeah, so we used the time to basically, instead of like actively be trying to push the product to sell, we started to collate, you know, lists and bring all our get all our ducks in a row. We caught up with a load of features that we needed to work on. Really tried to get ahead of the game so that this quarter, as people kind of relax a bit and look to spend money again, we had everything ready to like blast forwards. And yeah, I feel that's what we've done. I'm quite optimistic about the next quarter or two.
Great. I mean, so yeah, an opportunity for you to do a bit of a pitch here. What does that mean for your customers then? What exciting features could they, or things could they look for?
So some of the feedback that we had before was on our question and answer facility,
Okay.
particularly from the Nordics, because we sell globally. And we've basically worked with a few of our key clients on improving that feature. And we think now it's like one of the best in the industry. We've always been quite focused on user experience, so we're really engaged with the users of the platform, and we always, you know, seek feedback. So we've used this time as well to do more of that and really improve the product. And it's, as a result of that, it's just incredibly fast, incredibly easy to use. I think we're so far ahead now.
Great stuff. Yeah, I saw your podcast on user experience the other day actually. So if you're watching this and you haven't seen that, go and check out Nick's profile and check out what user experience means for these guys. So if we can, let's move on. You know, you've been communicating well with your team. You know, not a lot has changed in terms of how you've had to do things, which is great. So you know, what does leadership mean to your organization, and how do you apply that in a remote environment effectively? What other things can people learn from the way that you do it?
I'm really big on, you know, well-being and mental health. I write with a friend of mine for the Society of Computers in Law.
Okay.
It's a weekly well-being series, but I'm of the firm belief that you can't influence the external world unless you focus on the inner world yourself. So I do a lot of kind of meditation and reflection and make sure I'm in a good place myself, so that I can then lead by example. And I speak with all my employees on a regular basis, and I encourage them to, you know, look inwards a bit, and I ask them what they want to do to grow personally.
Yeah.
And we try to support that as well. I mean, I've got a couple of developers that just love travel, so we are looking for ways that they can then start to travel more and keep working for us. You know, we have clients in Australia, so if they're traveling, we cover more of the time zones, right? So it's it helps with all of that. We just seek ways, because if we don't support them, they'll probably find an alternate job that does. But just trying to create an environment really that they just love to work in.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, you know, and I don't think anyone ever sets out to create a horrible environment, but I think often the environment is a reflection of the leader, right? So so the fact that you're taking that time to relax and you know, gain insight on yourself, you know, to be able to manage your teams, I think is really unique. I mean, I think so I wrote about this recently actually as well on you know, for me personally, you know, I've got a dog, and we do lots of long walks, and that gives me the time to think things through and not make rash decisions, and consider, the implications, or of what things I'm considering, or what I'm about to do. So and I think that's something I've really tapped into recently as well. Meditation is something that I've thought about, but I'm not sure I'm quite ready for that. But the long walks are, if you like, my form of meditation. So I find that I'm definitely on that path with you in terms of learning more about yourself to help others. The remote working thing is really interesting, and encouraging them to go traveling. There's a double-edged sword there, but I guess if giving people enough trust, then they'll look after themselves. So how do you manage that? How do you manage performance effectively in a remote working environment? What does success look like, and how do you manage that?
It's simply trust, building trust and loyalty, which takes time. For a new staff, they tend to only work with kind of dummy data until we build a relationship, and then it's reviewed by seniors before it gets deployed live. But it's all about just engagement and chatting with your staff, and just making sure they're happy. I think trust forms off the back of that.
Yeah.
And it's also important to regularly talk about security, and keep up to date there. We all subscribe to newsletters and about security, and we talk about it quite frequently. We'll do tests every so often, and every time someone receives like a phishing email, we circulate it and talk about why it's a phishing email, and make sure everyone's like really in tune to security. I mean, developers are so technical anyway; they have good backgrounds there.
Yeah.
And the sales staff, they don't really work with confidential data anyway, but sometimes they might. So we make sure that they're on the ball there too.
Yeah. So I mean, again, we've experienced this a lot with customers that you had to move to remote working almost overnight. Some companies have, include ours in that, literally had to physically pick the PCs up and take them home, because not everyone has laptops. We only had a small number of laptops in the company, and we're transitioning over to that. But security has been a big issue, and it's caused in that mass panic of moving to working from home and trying to update all your policies and things like that. People have been caught out. So clearly you guys have got lots of technical people there clued up. Have you experienced any issues? And how do you combat security in a remote working environment? From an operational perspective, I appreciate you're building a secure product and things like that. But tell us more about have you had any challenges? Have you been caught out, or
Well, we've done our ISO 27001 compliance. We've got Cyber Essentials, 9001 for quality control. We've got various policies in place. Many of our staff don't really leave the house much anyway, so it's it's absolutely fine. And like, they're conscious that if they're in a public place, they won't work on anything confidential. We have our own VPN because don't really trust VPN providers, because you never know who they are. Quite often it's said that a VPN protects your traffic, but not to the person running it necessarily. They've got all your traffic running through their VPN. So how do you know to trust them? So we host that ourselves. I've seen various law firms kind of panic recently during the pandemic, and previously they were quite strict with security. We'd have to go through rigorous spreadsheets with about 200 questions, and then pandemic hits, and all of a sudden they just switched to Zoom, and Zoom was known, I think it's all right now, but for being incredibly insecure. I don't think it was even encrypted, and it's just so amazing to see the pendulum swing there so wildly. Face of panic.
Absolutely. There was a moment in time. Hopefully, people will start to catch up, and that's there's always opportunity within chaos, isn't there, for these things? So, speaking of chaos, I mean, if we can mention Brexit just briefly. How do you see Brexit affecting not just your product or your services, but the sort of legal tech market as a whole? Do you have any insight on what you think the sector will do or change over the next remainder of the year?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the things I think we can be fairly sure about with Brexit is that no one really knows the direction it's going in. It's so unpredictable. I mean, there's so many factors involved. One of the things we do a lot of work on is embracing uncertainty. And if I was kind of sat here thinking about all the possible scenarios that Brexit could cause on us, I wouldn't actually be focused on the moment now and, what the current climate is. I'd be too busy worrying about problems that don't exist yet. We could do some planning, but, you never know what's around the corner. I think it's quite hard to predict, in all honesty.
Yeah. Do you see, I mean, obviously the exporting of, working with clients in Europe, do you see, obviously there's going to be a challenge, it's not going to stop, but, there's going to be a few more hoops to jump through. Do you think that'll add cost to your product, or do you feel that you've got it in a place where, it's going to be pretty, no changes for any new customers?
Again, it's quite hard to say. I mean, if the pound drops in value, I think it will offer better value to European clients. If not, I mean, at the end of the day, we have a high quality product that rivals the competition, and we're quite competitively priced anyway. So we'll adjust that if we need to. But again, it's quite hard to predict. Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to finish on just maybe a couple of nuggets of advice, if you like, for your relative peers in the legal tech sector. What's the biggest learning that you've taken from this? Even though there's been no change, and what piece of advice would you give to other legal tech leaders navigating through this period?
I think don't underestimate sales. Especially in legal tech. As a startup, it's all about taking risks, and as a law firm, it's all about mitigating risk. So when you've got no clients, no credibility, no history, it's really hard to convince a law firm to put their secure documents in your platform or their confidential information. It's a big risk for them to take. Despite you could do everything in the world to make sure that your platform is the most secure, highest performing, most resilient piece of software in the world, but it's still taking a risk, and you've not proven yourself. So that was the biggest challenge for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a great believer in that people buy from people, and hopefully more of these interviews will shine a light on companies like yourself. And the work that you're doing, I think it's really important that that the message of looking after people resonates from the top down, and I think more and more companies want to see that. They want to be part of that journey, and they see what you're trying to achieve, and hopefully things like this will will open up those opportunities. Look, thank you very much for today. That's great. Really wish you the best of luck for the continuous growth of Ruby Datum, and enjoy surfing and the music in Ibiza, and hopefully I will get out there soon as well myself. So thanks, Nick. Really enjoyed talking to you today, and look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Likewise. Thanks, Pete. Take care.